Well, awesome. Thank you guys both for agreeing to do this. Um, well, Pastor, I'll address you first. I'm a son of the house. I'm blessed by your passion for the Word of God, your heart for people. There's nothing more than I like to say about a pastor than he has a fear of God, loves the Word, is dedicated to people, fights for people. You lead grace first. And I mean, you just hear that from everyone that's pastored by you. So I want to honor you and thank you for this opportunity. Nathan, I was up at 3 a.m. just like watching all your stuff, man. I watched it
I'm sorry to hear that. That's a giant waste of time.
You'll know what I mean, but I watched the God is Gray in its entirety, which was a wonderful thing to see. We'll chat about that a little bit later, but drop that in there. Hey, you carry such an intelligent, practical insight on complex theological concepts and truth. But that's the beauty of God, and you can tell when you talk about those truths is how simply you communicate them, and it's as simple as Jesus Christ dying on the cross for us. And so just the way you're able to unpack that, it's a huge service to, I know, young people especially, and people that are just learning how to deal with the Word, what's important, what's not important. So I want to thank you for that, man, and the work that you're dedicated to. So
work.
that leads into a bit of the first question that I have for you guys, which is your approach to ministry. So what is your approach to ministry? Pastor, you're a lead pastor of a local church, and then much of what you do is through Theos Human and online based. So what is your approach to ministry? What do you dedicate your life to? And why did you choose this approach? And I use air quotes for that one.
Okay, I'll jump on this one first. Yeah. Well, for me, I think it always begins with calling and knowing, that God has called you into whatever ministry capacity that it is. I know that there's some things that people can do with gifting. Some people can do some things with talent. But I do think pastoral ministry, especially lead pastoral ministry, certainly should be a call for that that's identifiable. It certainly was for me. And for me, my first approach was being able to make the gospel relevant to people. I just thought if I can do that, there may be a whole lot of other things that, I'm not the strongest guy prophetically, and I don't know if there's been some dead people raised by my laying hands on them. They haven't told me, so I can't say that, there's areas that I certainly celebrate other people doing, but I know for me, it starts and begins with studying the Word to preach the gospel. And hopefully, prayerfully, which I think we've done pretty well here at CTC, is build teams of other people who can do some of those other things so well, so that I can focus in on what the Lord has called me to do. So that's my approach.
It's really good. Yeah, to be a pastor, you absolutely have to know that God called you to do it.
You ain't a kid.
Because it's a horrible job.
Yes. Yes, it is.
You have the absolute worst job in the world. Look, my dad is a pastor.
Oh, yeah.
I know what y'all have to do.
Mm-hmm. You got that right.
I would say I'd use in the modern vernacular, it sucks.
Okay, we're on a good start here, folks. Is this live? Yeah. Okay. Right. We're rolling.
I mean, it's people love to hate pastors right now, and it's hard to not take things personally when you're a pastor.
Right. True. True.
And people don't just come after something that you say. They ad hominem you. They come after your family.
Your family. Yeah, they do. They do.
And anything that they can attack, they will attack. It's worse than the internet because they don't just reserve it there. They show up at your door. They tell everybody in the community that where you live in. So if you don't have a sense of calling,
that's right,
you will not last.
It will be miserable.
Yeah,
you're right. That's the truth. I agree with you, man.
What was the moment for you that you were like, I feel called?
Oh, it's one of my favorite stories, but I don't want to take up all the time. But can I share?
Please.
So I had believed that I was being called to work at a church in Dallas, Texas, a guy that was a mentor of mine. And just over the years, he just saw what the Lord was doing and just said, would you come work for me? And I was working at Pepsi Cola at the time because I don't do Coke, right? So, so doing Pepsi Cola.
Either one, right?
Yeah.
Either definition of that one.
So, and so I was securing a part-time job there for Pepsi in Dallas area, and then doing that. As the time got closer and closer, though, Nathan, so I resigned from my job. I was also working doing ministry at my church my grandfather planted. So I let all those things go, sold my home, and was preparing to go. The closer it got to me going, the more I felt a strong sense I was not supposed to leave. So I'll try to shorten this story. So when I got to the point where I recognized I wasn't supposed to, I bought another home, had 3 children at the time. I'm not at my former church because I left there, went back to my employer to ask him if I could still keep working, which was kind of, an interesting thing because I had to tell them I was leaving because God called me, but now God didn't call me to go, so they're thinking, okay, so your God has schizophrenia, right? Kind of thing. But here's the interesting thing, I'll just drop this. The guy I was working for, Jack Fritz, was the first guy that wrote me a check when I started my church. So it was a great witness and great testimony. But so I'm standing in my yard. I bought a gutted home, so I had to rebuild that home on the inside. And in Yuma, you can't grow grass here without fertilizer and all of this stuff. So I just had dirt, slightly wondering what I'm supposed to do. I'm watering dirt, literally. I'm just holding the water hose with water running out because I'm just kind of not sure what's happening with my life. And I hear a voice say, as sure as grass grows in this lawn, you will grow a church in this city. It's only twice I heard the voice of God audible, and that was the second time.
Wow.
And I shook a little because I'm thinking, man, I'm really losing my mind because there's nobody around, there's just nobody there. And after I got myself together, I just kept holding the hose. Now I'm thinking, what is going on with my head? And I hear the voice again. As sure as grass grows in this lawn, you will grow a church in this city. So to prove it, I watered the whole dirt area for 2 weeks. And in 10 days, you would have thought I put some nuclear radioactive stuff on that grass. That lawn was this high, was bright green.
Wow.
And I knew that was God's will. And I rented a building and used my own money. Had my sons were they were 7, and so my sons they took care of my kids. We rented a building on the north end of town. Kids were jumping out the windows doing church service because they didn't know what they were doing. I didn't know what I was doing. Put 30 chairs in a building that wasn't much bigger than this stage. And we went from 6 people in my living room to that building to 1,300 now.
Wow.
It's been amazing.
Wow.
Quite a journey.
So, I mean, you have to, you heard God. God showed up, and that probably has sustained you for all the years.
Exactly, because when there's been those moments where, I can never say that I wanted to quit, but I can say I've had moments almost similar to what I preached today where I just was going to accept whatever it was. If it's only 70 people, if it's only 100, if I gain 20 this year and, 30 leave, and in this town where everybody knows me, anytime something goes wrong with Tyrone P. Jones, it's like billboards all over town, right? Everybody knows. I came to the place at times, Nathan, where I just said, okay, God, if this is all you got for me. Now, there's one other story I want to tell. I can never tell this story without getting emotional, but I'm going to give it a shot, if it's okay. My daughter, Tisha, at the time was at Father's house with Dave Patterson. I don't know if you know Dave. Dave was starting to mentor me in some areas. The church was stagnant. I knew God was saying for us to get to another level, but I wasn't sure how to do it, how to get there, and was a little nervous about it. Anyway, went there, started meeting with Pastor Dave, had some things that was spoken into my life, went to lunch. There was a receptionist that worked in the front at the church. Shawnee, I think her name was. Shauna. I walked in. Now she wasn't a minister or anything, just a receptionist. I'm not trying to demean that, but just to give you the context. I walked in. She said, Pastor Tyrone, I know you don't know me, but I have a word for you. The Lord showed me a picture. She said, the Lord showed me you walking through this field, and the more you walked, things got deader and deader. Things began to get black, gray, darker and darker, and you kept walking. You kept walking. But as it got worse, you came to the point where you just was so overwhelmed with everything getting worse. And right below your feet was a skull, a skull. You picked that skull up, and you held it up to the Lord and said, if this is the best it gets, I'm going to keep serving you. If this is the best it gets. And you put that skull down and kept walking. And as you started walking after that, everything got brighter and brighter and brighter. And then a door opened. And inside that room was people from all walks of life, all nationalities, full of color, full of life. And you were celebrating what Jesus was doing.
That's awesome.
Whew.
So good.
Those things that keep you, man. Those things that keep you.
Man, so tell us, Nathan, about Theos Human, the work you do there, and how did God drop that in your heart, and how'd that all start?
Yeah, wow. I've kind of had like a bit of an opposite journey than you, I think. I think I'm a really confused person generally. And I wrote a book called Hearing God because I don't know how to hear God. And I was trying to figure out how to hear God. And I was living in New York, and I was discouraged. I was attending, or actually working at a church there, and I just didn't know what the Lord wanted from me. I wanted to be a worship guy, like a music guy.
I remember that. Yeah.
But that just didn't seem to work. And so, I mean, to be honest with you, it's like it died. It just shut down. And so I'm just trying to figure out what to do. And I just said yes to open doors, I guess, that the Lord sort of opened. And I've always kind of believed that we should build our life around, kingdom things. And, you know what I mean? So I went to Bible college, but I didn't know why I went to Bible college. I didn't know what else to do,
Was that in Portland then?
Yeah, that was in Portland, yeah. So I had some biblical training, and so I just said yes. My friends hired me, and I started to teach evening college, is what they called it. The church that I was going to was like a big soul-winning church, so there was a lot of people that, you got a lot of hands up on a Monday morning, and but on a Monday, people needed to kind of follow up that stuff, and so I wrote about 14 courses when I was in New York, and I was teaching on Monday nights, and and then I just kind of felt like I wasn't supposed to be there anymore. It was just a sense. I can't explain it. It was kind of like one day a switch just went off, and I'm like, I'm not supposed to be here. And so I left, and that was about 4.5 years ago, and didn't have a job. I just left. I went and lived with my in-laws for about 6 months and just ate their food. Hey, Dad, I'm homeless. Are you proud of me now?
Hey, Dad, I'm home. Bless.
Are you glad you gave me your daughter? So,
Oh my.
so it was in that time that, just kind of, I guess, waiting on the Lord, and just some room to breathe a little bit. That, after making that decision, it was definitely a decision of faith to leave. We just had this idea, like, what if we took some of these courses and recorded them, and see if anybody wants them, and it could be some help, and so that was about. And we launched about 3.5 years ago, and so that's kind of our story. So Theos U is sort of like just a place where people can get a Bible college education, but abbreviated, and distilled, and they pay sort of like a Netflix monthly subscription, and I think that we just found a need, and I do care about discipleship. I do care about local churches. When I was living in New York, I had never seen people that didn't have money before. I'm not from a rich family. I'm from a broke family. We're not poor. We're just broke. But but I'd never seen people, like, you know, yeah, I like have just nothing, like, and so I wanted to create something for people who have nothing that can get an education and it be academic, and I feel like the charismatic church and the evangelical church, particularly charismatic evangelicals, they're trying to find their heart right now,
Yeah.
and I want to be a part of that,
Yeah.
and I want to expose people to not just myself, but guys like Bob McGregor and Ken Malman and Frank Damasio, and so that's kind of my story.
Yeah.
If I can just jump into, you mentioned those guys, but Nathan's dad, John Finochio, and his parents, Virginia and I have been at their church in Toronto and been at their home, and I hear what you're saying, poor, not poor but broke, but there's a rich heritage there, man, that was passed down, and I just think what God invested in you was just absolutely what he intended for this season, for many of us, for this generation, for this culture. Your course now is 60 courses now, right, or something like that. And
Yeah, we have about 60 plus courses.
yeah. And so for us, it got leadership schools at our church. It's the perfect thing. And knowing that you got a heart for a local church, you come a family that's local church oriented, prophetic family. It's a real blessing, man.
Cool.
It's a real blessing.
Thank
Love
you.
it.
Thank you,
Love
Pastor.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask regarding how you got started. You mentioned you had like 14 courses and everything. Did that teaching thing, did that come out of, I guess, a response of deficits that you would see when it came to, like, as far as like just the rich theology? I mean, Pastor talks about it all the time, that it's from those foundational truths that we can kind of flesh out the practicalities of life. And really, once we get to the culture questions of even some methodology questions, which I wanted to ask you guys, sort of just your opinion on it, the spectrum of methodology in church is so wide. I mean, sort of in the middle nowadays, it's real accepted to have, multiple campuses, and, but the practicalities of, if the pastor is beamed over to another campus and there's no local shepherd, is that flock actually being shepherded? All the way down to now, I saw an announcement of, the term was decentralized church and church in the metaverse and all that. So the question that I had is there a morality when it comes to methodology in your view? And or is it just risk tolerance? Not my kind of thing, not what I grew up in, or I've seen it effective like this, and so that's what I sense God has called me to? Or is there a bit of a, I think I heard, it was Craig Rochelle, he said, we'll do anything short of sin to see people reach. And there's a real, like, that's really awesome to hear that, you know what I mean? But when it's fleshed out now, it's like, hey, are we going to get into that, or should we explore that? Where do you guys land when it comes to methodology in churches? Because it comes up as technology, increases, and there's multiple avenues to reach more people. That just what you mentioned about, I can't remember the phrase you used, but having sort of a big front door and a big back door when it came to discipleship. That's really where you have to start to think, is this method even going to be effective when it comes to what we really want to do, which is disciple people or whatnot? So methodology, touch on that for us.
Okay. Well, it's a good question, and I have actually been thinking more and more about it lately. I am certainly not against the idea of having campuses. I can see how that can work in certain areas, and we've certainly talked through that. We've actually had campuses in places that was distant, found some difficulties with that. Also know, though, within a 25-minute range, having a campus, within 25 minutes, people will still probably come to the lead place. Then you go to the idea of whether you have a live person there or whether you have a, person on video and have a campus pastor. I really think these days I'm more convinced of the pastor shepherd model with the local church than I ever have been before, because of everything that people are experiencing. And this is what happens when people don't have that personal shepherd. Not saying it has to be just the lead guy. They're going to go to the internet. They're going to run to wherever their friends or somebody advised to get the help that they need. I do think, though, there are things that should come alongside us. Again, what Nathan is doing with Theos U, when you know someone is local church oriented and is going to drive those people.
Supplement that,
That's
yeah.
right. Through whatever they're doing, it comes alongside the local church. So I do think there's things that we can do outside of our local area, local church, to help us disciple and grow and meet people's needs, which I think we should take advantage of. But I am by no means, I am against pastoring people by, apps, metaverse. I was going to do a video recently. I heard a guy who calls himself a TikTok pastor, and I'm like, come on, people. TikTok pastor, seriously? So I'm very much into that. I'm not sure where the line is or if I will need to know where the line is, but I do think we're gonna stay making decisions from as much of a context, even if we do have other locations, as close as that can be to a local shepherd in that place is, I think, where we're going to land. And that's my thought on it. And I think the more technological driven we get, I think the more we need to take a real good look at where that's taken us and the people as a whole. So that's my thought.
100% agree. I guess there's some like philosophical, theological conversation in there, like what makes a church a church. The reformers, when they were going, okay, well, we're not part of a Catholic church, but what constitutes a church? What gives us the right to create a church? And so they sort of agreed on 3 things, I believe, or 2 things, was it? It was wherever the gospel's preached and the sacraments are administered.
That's right. That was it.
And the gospel would be preached and the sacraments would be administered by a teaching elder. Somebody who is called of God and obviously possesses an ability to teach and feed, because Pastor Frank says your ability to lead comes from your ability to feed.
That's
so
right.
so that's why, to me, a small group it might be a part of the church as long as it's connected to a teaching elder. You know what I mean? Yeah. But on its own, without a teaching elder, it's not a church. Yeah, it's just a hangout.
I agree.
And hangouts are good, and hangouts can be life-giving, and the Holy Spirit can show up wherever 2 or 3 are gathered. Sure. But what constitutes a church, right? Yeah. What constitutes a church? Wherever the gospel's preached by a teaching elder.
That's right.
And the sacraments are administered by a teaching elder. So I would start there. And then I'd look at Acts 2, 42 to 47, and everything happening in the Acts 2, 42 to 47 paradigm of they continued together in the apostles' doctrine.
That's right.
Not their own, the apostles' doctrine. And fellowship, the breaking of bread, day to day in each other's houses and in the temple. Yeah. Right? So there's a corporate gathering and there's house-to-house gatherings, right? And they had everything in common. So, and God added to the church daily those who were being saved.
That's right.
Right? So then I'd look at that and I'd go, there is physical proximity happening here.
That's
people good. In bodies with butts and seats are part of the church.
Yeah.
Right? You can't do church outside of your body. Right? I think that what we're seeing with a lot of technology is Gnosticism.
That's good. Is what?
Gnosticism.
Oh my, yes. Wow.
It's like it's Neoplatonic Gnosticism. It's like, I'm gonna stay. You're not a living stone in your underwear on your couch watching TV.
Come on.
Put that on a shirt or something.
You know what I mean?
So good.
And online church is not. It's supplemental.
Supplemental. Yeah.
Right. So the whole idea of a supplement is to get you back to health. You know what I mean? Like, so if you're in traction at the hospital and you got casts on, right? That's not the plan isn't for you to be there for the rest of your life. The plan is for the cast to come off, for you to heal and to return to normal activity, right? And so what happens is in a time like COVID, nobody's asking what constitutes a church. They're just in traction. And then they start to go, oh, let's meet people in their homes. And we're going, yes, But no, like once COVID's over, because it will be over, we're going to be back being the people of God. It's Acts 2:42-47, physical proximity. So you got to be in your body doing church. God cares about your body. God cares about places. God cares about physical proximity. And so, yeah, I don't think, like as Pastor Tyrone said, you can't pastor people on the internet. You know, like you got to, and of course you can, like through a Zoom call, but that's not what he's saying. What he's saying is, dude, I need to get to know you.
That's right.
I need to know who you are.
Yeah.
I need to see you operating in the local church. I need to see how you show up. You know, you worship. I need to see your manner of life. Your giftings, your callings, you know, like the church happens in the minute to minute, in the hour to hour, in the day to day, as we're being the body. So yeah, so I have major reservations if people are saying that we're going to decentralize church and, you know, everything's just going to be an app. It's like, that's not church. It's not church. Church is butts in seats, people doing life together in relationship.
Amen.
And there's a pastor there.
Amen.
And apps supplement.
That's right.
So Theos U is never going to be a church. It supplements what the church and the pastor's doing.
Amen.
So if I can come alongside Pastor Tyrone and provide a service that the service will only ever be for the church, to equip the church and to help him do pastor locally. You know what I mean? But if I start a church online and I start calling it Theos Online, I'm a Gnostic.
Yeah.
I'm not a pastor. And I will just put this there. You've not thought this through theologically. You've not read the Bible and come up with a great idea. What you've done is you've allowed the culture to seep in.
That's so good.
And now you're letting culture and technology dictate to you how Christ wants his church to be.
That's
so
Are you
good.
actually
Wow.
kidding me?
Wow,
You
that's
know what I
good.
mean? Like, God has a plan. It's called the local church, and he added to the church daily those who were being saved. If somebody's not being added, they're not being saved. So
I love it.
it's really easy to tell who a Christian is. They go to church. Why? Because God planted them in it.
Yeah. And we were just talking the other
Wow.
day too
That's
about
good, Nate.
how in the attempt to reach as many people, these are the things, right? We say like it's the same kind of bait and switch that you hear with like, well, I don't care about numbers. Yeah, but numbers are people, so I kind of care about numbers, right? So you get caught up in this thing where we want to make it as attractional and as epic and as inviting, and you just keep making the road wider and wider and wider and wider. And something that I noticed, even in the practicalities of life and just the situations that happen in day-to-day life, is the lack of accountability back to the church. You lose that. So it's like I was talking with Pastor about church membership not even being a thing anymore. And of course how that's fleshed out or whatever, it's different from, varies, but the accountability that I have to the church as well, where if I'm behaving in a way that makes Christ look bad or makes my brothers look bad,
Where's your
I made an
accountability?
agreement that an elder can come to me and discipline me for that.
Sure,
And
sure.
so there's a lack of that in the exchange of, well, we want you to come in because the good news is always good, and you kind of lose that bit of it too, which is sort of, I don't know if it's put in the category of religious or whatnot.
I'll give you an example that really hits home for me. I get DM'd all the time by people that are having problems, okay? Here's an example, though. A wife goes, my husband is addicted to pornography. He's abusive. He's probably cheating on me. And I go, okay, have you told your pastor? No, we don't go to a church. Now what?
Where do you go with that?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because if y'all were going to a church, well, of course you're going to go to a church. Why would he want to lead you to a church? Because if he was at a church, he'd be held accountable for that.
That's right.
So see, churches protect women.
Oh, that's good.
Churches
Wow.
protect children.
That's good. Wow.
Churches protect men. Johnny Depp, right?
Chris Rock.
Obviously, he needed to be going to church. But what I'm saying here is like these are, and I'll just say this, we hear about pastors who have fallen, who are idiots, whatever, and it's sad. But don't think that that's the story of the church, because it's not.
Come on, say it.
When you hear about these things that you only hear about the planes that crash.
That's right.
You don't hear about
the
2 million
That's right.
planes that land safe every single day.
That's right.
Right? And so what do? We just look at the head. This is how stupid social media and the newspaper thing can be. Is you see something in a headline and then you think it's happening everywhere, and it's not. You know, people. My wife and I were out the other day. We were at a Outback Steakhouse. We went last night, and everybody was so nice. Everybody. Like, the wait staff were so nice. People opened the doors for us to go in. People opened the doors for us to go. These families, beautiful families. Everybody, every skin color from the sun was in there, and everybody just liked each other. And my wife kept on saying, oh, they're so nice, they're so nice. I'm like, people are nice.
Yeah.
You've been on social media. You think that people hate each other. They don't.
That's good.
In real life,
Yeah.
people love each other. People are respectful.
That's good.
This whole, you know what I mean? You need to get off the internet. You know, because if you're on the internet too much, you start to go weird, right? And so churches are great. Most pastors are trustworthy and faithful, and they shepherd the flock, and they're awesome, and their eldership are doing a great job at keeping everybody accountable. And most churches are healthy places.
Amen.
But what's happened is people go crazy. They go on the internet. They believe some false narrative. And who ends up being hurt? Women and children.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's just one example. You want to talk about church hurt? Okay, that does happen. There are abuses.
Sure.
But you know what protects people even more? Being in a good church.
That's good. Good. That's so good. That's outstanding.
Yeah, I mean that's his home for me too. You know, I was part of a what I would consider, now these are terms, right? They get flashy, but a pretty spiritually abusive environment. And I remember leaving that place, the first thing I did was run to a healthy church, man, and bawled it out and got a Christian counselor and talked to someone, got healthy. And the narrative is, well, if you hate the church, it's like, no, there's no hating of the church. The sheep know the shepherd's voice, and so that goes back to just the importance of a shepherd preaching the word, and people know that the sheep are, and that's something else that happens on the internet too, man. Maybe you can comment on this too. Is the stereotype is, the person in the comment, the Christian in the comment that's reproving something ridiculous that's happening in the church. Well, that person's just fat in the basement. And I'm like, I think there's some really solid, awesome Christians that are looking at some of the abuses inside of the church and just trying to sound the alarm, man. And it's like, well, quit being so religious, quit doing this or that. And it's like, I think we undervalue the sheep that are in a healthy church because they're doctrinally sound, they're navigating life well, and you know what I mean?
No, yeah, and I'll add to that too. Because CTC's 29 years, we've had our issues and troubles, but this is what I know: when a church is healthy, even when there's problems or tough stuff, healthiness surrounds that illness. It's the same issue when you break a bone, right? The good calcium gets around that broken spot and makes that place stronger again. Really, and it's the same when the church is healthy, because who knows what issues that we've had and will have. But when you're healthy, instead of folks adding to the problem on social media and say, yeah, I was at that church and this and that and that and that. No, they when they get to a healthy place, they're able to join with healthy people, and stuff that could be going wrong, they work through that and make themselves stronger. And so health just begets health. It just does. It just does. Yeah.
Man, okay, sweet. I'm gonna skip a question that's really important, but
well, if it's important,
but there's a lot of important questions. Okay. And we got a couple minutes. Yeah. No, but it was gonna be surrounding culture. But while we're on the avenue of just church, I mean, what do you see in the coming days for the church? Not so much your eschatology, but in the macro of your lifetime, what's God up to, and what part do you hope to play in that? You mentioned like the charismatic church trying to find his heart. Is that the realm that you're in? And what do you see for the church in the coming days?
I see a couple of things, and I don't want to say this as if CTC is the model, because I mean, obviously, there's other things I see, but I think two things is maybe three is going to be important. One, just dealing with the cultural stuff. I think we more so need to think of ourselves as not cultural warriors, but cultural evangelists. That we're touching culture. We're not running away from it. I'm not afraid of it. Don't like everything I see in it. Obviously, know the effects of it, but I think we can still be very relevant with culture. People cry out of a need or hurt. What we hear is the garbage. Nathan would have said crap, but the garbage going on in people's life, and they're crying out from that, and so, but when the masses do that, voices together, then people think that's what's true, what's right, and then culture gets shaped. I think if we're evangelistic in that we can be relevant still to people's lives and help them out of it. The second thing is, I do not want to be the only church in my city that's multicultural and multi-generational. I want more churches, and believe God is doing that. More churches being multicultural and multi-generational. There's nothing more exciting to me to stand here with 300 young people just going stone nuts, and me and Virginia in our 50s, and we're getting joy out of seeing them do what they do, and feel like, man, I'm part of something, man. I mean, I'm part of something. These kids are loving life, loving Jesus, and I get to be part of this. I don't think it's no longer the whole idea for us to pass the baton. I think we run across that thing as a relay race, all four of us together, if you want to do it in that term. We're all running this thing together. I'm not passing off like I'm off the scene, now it's your time. No, it's our time. We're moving in this together. And the other one may be a little bit more controversial, but I do believe that that younger generation is looking for more solid, put my teeth into it doctrine.
That. Yeah, it's true.
And so from us, of course, we come from a reformed doctrine, reformed theology in that sense, very charismatic. I believe people want to know solid truth that they can define biblically and still experience the awesomeness of the Spirit of God, and they don't contradict each other. God's truth is his truth, and I can define justification. I can define what Christ done on the cross. I can define what Jesus taught about healing. I can define these things and yet have some awesome experiences in God where I can't explain what God was doing, but it was awesome, and it doesn't take away from what I know God is able to do. That's where I believe we're headed.
That's much of what I love about what you do too, man. Is I don't know. I'm 29. Growing up, it was always if you're into theology, you just want to get spiritually fat.
Right.
And I'm like, I got a bunch of questions that my pastor doesn't want to answer because he doesn't know the answer himself. You know what I'm saying? So I grew up, and I probably handled it a lot as a teenager, kind of the rough ways with my elders at the time. But I had a lot of questions, man, and I had a deep hunger for God because I knew that that's where it starts. I mean, if you don't know God's voice, if you can't hear God's voice, then what are we supposed to do? Who do we trust? You know, it's Jesus' voice I hear through what you're communicating, unless you step away from the pulpit and you tell me something else.
Right.
You know, then we're led by something else. You know, so
That's right.
And you wrote the book on hearing God, so you're doing something right. But again, tell us a bit about what you see coming for the church, man, and your role in that, and what you aspire to.
I just want to echo what Pastor said there. It's just a church that. Of substance, so things of the Spirit and word, like Spirit and truth, you know.
That's
so
right.
so
Words,
I think
Spirit and truth.
I think
Word and Spirit.
I think the future of the church is local. It's proximal. It's tangible. It's not on the internet. It's here, and it's shepherds that are accessible, and they know you and you know them, and they teach the Bible. It's like really simple, and maybe the color of the carpet changes, and the style of music changes, but it's the basics. It's just as Dick Iverson always used to say, you just beautify the basics.
That's right.
You beautify the basics.
Make them beautiful.
Yeah.
Make the basics beautiful. Yes.
So, I'm like, I'm excited about the church. I think Jesus is going to come back for a glorious church, and it's going to be beautiful. The church it's not going to suck. It's going to be beautiful. She's going to be beautiful. And if she isn't beautiful, then Jesus isn't coming back yet.
That's right, till he gets there. I agree. I agree. Yeah. Can I jump in with a question to you? So obviously, Theos U is increasing with more and more people. Are you able to identify why? Like, is it people in churches that are not getting solid word and they're looking for it? Or is it people in more people that are solid in their church and yet want to continue to grow with a little bit more depth? Like, are you able to identify why it's growing as much as it is?
Right. I think there's probably a lot of different reasons, why people would do Theos U. I mean, we have PhDs who use Theos U as a resource.
Oh, wow.
We have brand new Christians who use Theos U as a resource. Pastors, youth leaders. We have youth groups that use the classes as discipleship classes. So
okay.
there's a number of reasons. Probably part of the reason why it's growing is, I go to churches.
Mm-hmm.
People. I connect with the pastors, and they find out about the resource. They begin to implement it in their church, and it grows that way, kind of organically, which I think is it's a good way to grow things, is organically and through relationships.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But yeah, I think that just people are looking for places that, okay, yeah, I'm a charismatic, and yeah, I'm evangelical too, and I'm Reformed. Oh, cool. There's they have Reformed teachers there, and I'm not Reformed, but they have some teachers that aren't Reformed or whatever. But it's just a kind of a place where it's ecumenical, but it's central. It's like it's pushing towards the center of evangelicalism and historic Christian orthodoxy in that regard. So
I like it. Very good, very good. And we want to encourage it.
Yeah.
TheosU.com.
TheosU.ca.
.ca.com.
Theos
Oh no,
U.
just .ca.
The .com is like $14,000, and I'm not going to pay them for it.
Okay, yeah.
So
TheosU.ca.
.ca at the moment.
TheosU.ca.
Yeah.
But one day when we have enough money, we'll buy the .com. But the price by then, the guy's going to keep charging us more. So I don't know who it is.
Okay, well
We're going to find out though.
Okay, that's all right. Let's just stick with where it's at.
Yeah, okay.
That's bothering you, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
In Jesus' name.
Yeah.
So
I just released that.
.ca. Release it. That's right. Release it.
We got an altar moment at the session. Yeah. Well, thank you both, man, for sitting down and taking some questions. And I know we could probably be here for hours and just keep poking at it. And
Love it.
but I want to thank you guys and honor you guys for the work that you guys do.
Thank you,
Again,
man.
Pastor, thank you for being an incredible shepherd.
Thank
For
you.
loving the Word of God.
Thank
For
you,
being
man.
committed to the Word of God above all else. Passion for Jesus. And Nathan, thanks for being here with us, man. For investing in us.
Yeah.
And for the work that you do and the hours that you do behind the scenes and everything.
Honored to be here.
Yeah. Love you
deal.
guys. Thanks.
God bless you.